Do you struggle on the SAT reading passages? Do you run out of time on English Module 2? Or do you find that you read the same thing over and over again and you just still don't understand what it's saying? Guys, Laura here with STP. I've been in your shoes before. When I was in high school, I scored a 780 in math and a 640 in English. So I had a really tough time with the SAT reading passages with those struggles that I already just mentioned. And so when I founded STP, my mission was to create strategies that make the process so much easier for you guys, so you have so much more confidence in the test and you're just not as stressed out as you were before. So in this video, I'm actually going to cover our top SAT reading strategies. These are strategies I use myself when I take the test. And I just recently went in and took the November SAT, and I will tell you, it was a vastly different experience for me. So enjoyable. I really feel like all of these strategies are clicking, and I'm excited to share them with you, and I really hope that you put them into practice. Using these strategies now lands me a 1580. I got that on an official test in June. So I'm hoping that you will see the same score improvement that I saw after learning how to do the reading passages more efficiently and effectively. All right, my first strategy number 1, is actually an execution strategy. So there's different execution strategies you can employ on the SAT English. I personally really like starting at number 27 and working backwards. That's for another video, and I can explain that one. But if you have a tough time staying focused on the SAT reading passages, one thing I would recommend is breaking it up into 2 blocks. So start at number 1, work up to number 10, and then skip to the grammar, do 15 to number 27, and then loop back and do number 11 to 14. This breaks up the reading into 2 blocks, like I already said. So you're doing like number 6 through 10 in one chunk, and then number 11 through 14 in another chunk. It's a great thing when you can't stay focused. Strategy number 2, I want you to find 3 wrong answers instead of 1 right answer. If you approach the SAT reading passages trying to find a right answer, you will likely pick a trap answer. So you have to reframe your thinking, because they make a lot of the answer choices sound really good. So think critically and use process of elimination to get it down to the right one. All right, strategy number 3 is a big one. I want you to look for synonyms in the answer choices to synonyms in the text. So the text in the answer choice that's correct will say the same thing in different ways, and it's very subtle. But if you get good at pinpointing a phrase and then another phrase that means the same thing, you are likely to earn more points on the SAT reading. All right, strategy number 4, I want you to pay attention to adverbs of degree. So adverbs are those ly words that are used to describe verbs, and adverbs of degree are words like largely, partly, significantly, uniformly. So these adverbs of degree are really important because they can change whether an answer choice is right or not. I have seen an adverb of degree in an answer choice make the entire answer choice incorrect, even though the rest of it was completely accurate. All right, strategy number 5. When you're reading, if you come across a hard name to pronounce, whether it's a person or a city or something else, just call that person or thing by their initials, okay? There's no sense in trying to pronounce a really tough name. It's going to break up the flow of your reading and your comprehension. All right, strategy number 6. I want you to skip over big words you don't know. I promise you that one big word will probably not make or break your understanding of the passage. So you can get enough context clues without understanding the difficult word. All right, guys, if you're liking this video so far, make sure to smash that subscribe button and notification bell below so you don't miss out on future content from me to help you get ready for the SAT. All right, strategy number 7. I want you to basically simplify what seems like a complicated passage by pulling out the keywords and phrases that you do understand. You don't have to understand every single thing on the passage. If you can pinpoint those keywords and phrases, that typically will be enough to help you match up to a right answer. All right, strategy number 8. I want you to annotate when you're getting completely lost while you're reading. Now, guys, use the annotation strategy minimally though. So 1 or 2 times on module 2 max, because when you do annotations, it takes a lot of time and you can't afford to spend so much time annotating. But when you do annotate, try to use symbols, use a lot of shorthand, don't write long-winded sentences. That's also going to waste time. And I would recommend using your scrap paper instead of the annotation tool in bluebook, because the issue with the annotation tool in bluebook is once you take a note on a certain part of the text, you can't visibly see the note. It disappears unless you hover over it. So I find that it's just easier to take notes on the paper and then I can see it all in one place, and it's just easier to process my thoughts that way. All right, strategy number 9. If the text doesn't say it, please don't pick it. So there are a lot of trap answers on the SAT that are basically answers that could be true, but there's not enough information. So you might find yourself sometimes narrowing it down to 2 and picking the wrong one, right? We all have been there. If you're doing that, there's a really high likelihood you're making an inference and your brain is trying to connect the dots when the text did not say what the answer choice is saying at all. So to give you an example, I was working with a student and we were reading a fiction passage. It was about a narrator and another man that met on a ship when they were going to America. And the narrator basically described the man as never getting up from his seat. So my student was asked how to characterize the man, and they picked an answer that said he was lazy. So of course it was a wrong answer. And I asked my student, well, why did you pick that? Why did you say he was lazy? And my student, of course, says, well, he never got up from his seat. I'm like, yes, but what are some other reasons the man may not have gotten up from his seat besides being lazy? And my student thought about it for a little bit and they started listing off other things. Oh, he was old or he was disabled. And so they realized, oh, shoot, I was making an inference here. The text didn't actually say he was lazy. I came to that conclusion and made that assumption on my own. So unless it's an inferences question, which is a little bit of a different story, most of the questions you do not want to make an inference and you just need to stick to the text. All right, guys, if you're finding this video helpful so far, show me some love, hit the like button below. All right, strategy number 10 is important, especially in the science passages. It's good for you to understand the difference between a direct and an indirect correlation. So let's just talk about that briefly. A direct correlation is when one thing directly affects another thing. So to give you an example, let's say I have a population of dusky sharks, and dusky sharks eat stingrays. So if the dusky shark population goes up, it will directly affect the stingray population, which is going to go down, because if there's more dusky sharks, they're going to eat more stingrays. Now, if stingrays eat oysters, right, the dusky sharks will indirectly affect the oysters, because if the dusky shark population goes up, then the stingray population is going to go down, which then causes the oyster population to go up. So the dusky sharks indirectly affect the oysters. So there are going to be science passages that deal with these indirect correlations where there's a middleman in between, and it's important that you can pinpoint and recognize that. It's also key for you to know the difference between a positive and a negative correlation. So a positive correlation is when one thing goes up, the other thing goes up, or when one thing goes down, the other thing goes down. A negative correlation means the opposite happens. So when one goes up, the other goes down. Lots and lots of science questions on this or passages that mention these types of correlations. So please make sure you have a handle on that. All right, strategy number 11 is a pretty simple one, but when you have a poem or a fiction passage, please avoid picking answer choices that are too literal. So for instance, if your poem is talking about a beating drum, please don't pick an answer that mentions a beating drum, because I promise you there's something symbolic or metaphorical going on that's a little deeper than the literal meaning. All right, my last strategy is play positive negative. So if you're not sure and you're having a hard time following the passage and you need to move on, just determine, is this passage positive sounding or negative sounding? And make sure you pick an answer that goes with that. So if the passage sounds positive in tone, don't pick a negative sounding answer. I mean, that's not going to be right. So just try to keep it simple as much as possible. In worst case scenario, if you really are stuck on a reading passage, please just flag it to come back to, because there is no sense spending 3 or 4 minutes on a passage. It's going to really rob you of the opportunity to pick up as many points as possible, which is the entire point of a standardized time test. So that being said, I've actually formulated an amazing reading strategy. I think I've cracked the code, you guys, and I used it on the November test and it went really, really well. It's such an amazing strategy. I don't even want to share it in this video because I'm afraid that if everybody catches wind of it, College Board is going to switch things up, and it works so, so well. So that being said, I am holding a reading crash course. It's a 2-hour crash course at the end of the month before the December SAT. So if you're watching this video shortly after the filming of it, then you probably can sign up for this crash course. I will link it up here right now. If you're watching this video at a later date and you missed the crash course, I'm sorry, but please check our events page, because we run SAT classes where we'll cover this strategy. We also have self-paced courses. I'll link up here to our events page so you can go check out what's going on right now. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please comment below and let me know what your biggest struggle is with the SAT reading, and maybe if you have an idea for a future video that I can make to help you get even better at this really tricky area of the SAT. All right, guys, until next time, happy prepping.